Now, since Bernie Sanders made the call for millions of people to get involved with politics, we have seen a number of regular people begin to run for office. Now, this is something that doesn't normally happen. Normal people normally, they don't understand the intricacies of running for office, so they run into a lot of different surprises. So I've talked to a lot of candidates that are running for office for the first time, and they've run into a lot of procedural things, and they've also run into many issues with raising money. Now, a lot of these progressive candidates that haven't run before, they're actually running now in very contentious primary races against already established candidates, and in this case, establishment Democrats. Now, if you thought the establishment would roll over and give up its power, well, you're wrong. They actually use every trick in the book that they can to hold on. And one of the tricks they use is fundraising. Another, of course, is endorsements, and I'll touch on both of those. Now, there's an example written in a piece last week in The Intercept by Ryan Grimm and Lee Fong. This is an excellent piece, right? So in it, they have some examples of people who hadn't run for office before and what kind of roadblocks the establishment is putting in the way for these people for running for office. Now, they start out by talking about Jeff Erdman. Now, Jeff Erdman is running a race in Minnesota. Now, he was looking for, obviously, grassroots support, but also support from the DCCC. Now, that is the Democratic campaign. Now I can't think of it. Democratic, whatever, right? The DCCC. These acronyms are killing me, man. Anyway, Michael Rosenau, Erdman's campaign manager, said he and Erdman had reached out to the DCCC, but had a hard time getting through. Apparently, he wasn't a very well-known candidate, but most importantly, he wasn't a well-financed candidate. And I think that's what's most important. So what they did is they decided to crash a party. Fascinating. That's my kind of candidate. Like, hey, man, look, DCCC's not talking to us. Well, guess what? We're coming to their house. We're coming to your house. We're coming to your house. That's what O'Reilly used to say. So they did so, and they ended up actually getting a meeting with somebody who represents part of that organization. Now, Rosenau, who was there for the July 10th meeting, describes the meeting with the representative, Molly Rittner, as weird. Well, what was so weird about it? Well, they basically ignored everything about the candidate and what he was running on and focused specifically on one thing. And that happened to be the money. In fact, he said, quote, the first question out of her mouth was, how much will you raise? How much money will you raise? Now, they were saying, look, we raised $30,000 by that point, right? Now, that's a figure that Rittner deemed, quote, unimpressive. That's not very much, Rosenau recalls Rittner saying. Really, all we care about is the more money you raise, the more you can get your message out. And he added, nothing else mattered. All she wanted to know was how much money he could raise. So that is, again, another example of a party and an establishment that is too worried about money. And of course, if you're a smaller candidate, if you're grassroots, you don't have the ability to raise money, especially if you're not asking giant, billion or $1 million donors for cash. Well, they have another example in here. Stephen Lynch. Now, Stephen Lynch is a House Democrat who's facing a primary, and he's actually being primaried by someone else. So his insight's actually fascinating. Now, I told The Intercept that, quote, the Democratic and Republican parties are commercial enterprises, and they are very much interested in their own survival. They are commercial enterprises. So they're not actually there trying to push for candidates or for policies. They're there to basically make money. Fascinating. He said, quote, the money race is probably more important to them than the issues race in some cases. Now, again, this is somebody who works in Congress. He had been elected, I believe, in 2000. And so this guy's saying, look, yeah, this is a commercial enterprise. And look, this goes along with previous reporting where you had politicians from both sides of the aisle basically spend 4 to 6 hours a day on the phone begging donors for cash. So that's what they do. Like, your members of Congress, if you're wondering why they don't pick up the phone and they don't talk to you when you call, when it's their staffer instead, well, that's because they're busy on the phone calling their donors, begging them for money. And of course, those donors always happen to be rich donors. So they only get that perspective. If you wonder why you're not being represented, it's because they're not getting your perspective. And they're not getting your perspective because you're not writing them checks. So now, of course, they ignore campaigns that raise less money. We've established that. Now, even when they're running on popular issues, and even when they have a good chance of actually winning. Now, let me give you some examples of that. Now, Jess King, right? Now, Jess King is running in Pennsylvania's 16th district. She's actually running against Republican Representative Lloyd Smucker. Now, King runs a nonprofit. She helps struggling women start and run small businesses in the area. That's wonderful, right? Now, that's actually going to be important because it plays into what they talk to, what I'm going to talk about later on. Now, King is running on a populist progressive platform, basically Medicare for all, tuition-free public college, and other priorities, a living wage, things like that. So she starts this race, and of course she picks up a lot of local grassroots endorsements. For example, Lancaster Stands Up, Make the Road, Pennsylvania, and she's even a Justice Democrat. So, and of course, she picks up other endorsements as well. So now she looks to a major endorsement from one of the party players. Now, this happens to be Emily's List, right? Now, Emily's List is purported to be a women's organization. People who look out for example, reproductive freedom and for helping women attain power in businesses, things like that. So she thought, well, hey, I run a nonprofit. I help struggling women create small businesses, and I'm for reproductive freedom. Well, I should be a shoo-in for this endorsement from Emily's List, so I'm going to reach out to them, right? So, well, what happens? Silence. So she fills out all the forms and does everything that she has to do to try to get an endorsement and a deal with Emily's List, right? And she waits, and she waits, and she waits, and she waits, and nothing happens. Why? Well, it turns out Emily's List had already thrown their support to another candidate, who in 2016 raised more money than a Democrat ever had in that district. So this other Democrat ran in that district. She raised a ton of money. She had all the establishment support. And what happened? She got crushed. She got humiliated by the Republican opponent. Now, her name is Christina Hartman, right? And so she didn't run as a progressive. She ran as a centrist milquetoast Democrat. So she's like, oh, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and try and pick up Republican voters. Now, was that successful? Evidently not. Because why vote for Republican light when you can just vote for a Republican? And that's what they did. So she got, no pun intended, or pun totally intended, smucked. Okay. Now, it was so bad that she had underperformed Hillary Clinton in that district. So you have all the endorsements from official Democratic circles, all the money, and you still lose. And so, guess what? That same politician, she's back again. And this time, again, she has all the endorsements from the establishment and all the money. That's how they screw you, man. They don't want progressives to win. What they want is they want to continue the status quo. That same status quo that is crushing you right now. No, we have to get real progressives. Now, look, I can understand they live in this bubble, right? This is Washington establishment bubble. We're like, no, you don't understand. We need the money. We need the money because we need it for messaging, and we've got to pay our consultants and things like that. But see, the problem is the consultants, they get paid whether you win or lose. So they get their money and they give the standard advice like, no, you must be a perfect politician. You must be polished. and you must go out and try to appeal to the moderates. Problem is, where are the moderates? There are no moderates anymore because the Overton window has shifted so far to the right that now crazy is considered moderate. Anyway, look, and again, the establishment, they have the power, they have the money, and they want to keep it. That's why, as The Intercept writes, in district after district, the National Party is throwing its weight behind candidates who are out of step with the national mood. Now, look, 2016 was an outsider election. It's the point where people were finally so fed up enough with the status quo where they decided, I'm going to fight back. Look, I don't care who's running. I'll vote for a fucking ham sandwich as long as it brings me change. And Donald Trump, unfortunately, he campaigned on change. He didn't bring change. He brought more of the same, although a bit more insane. But nonetheless, he didn't bring all that much change. He filled his cabinet full of Goldman Sachs. And, of course, we're continuing the same kind of neoliberal centrist policies. Well, a little bit more far right-wing, I should say. But the same kind of policies that you would expect from a standard Republican. So, and now the DCCC, along with supporting some of those other centrist candidates, has named 18 candidates as part of its Red to Blue program. Now, that's interesting because that certain program, while not a specific endorsement, is something that gets you exclusive financial and strategy resources from the party. Now, how many of those 18 candidates do you think are progressive? I will wait. None of them. Absolutely none of them. And of course, we see this over and over again, right? The DCCC going for centrist milquetoast candidates solely based on their ability to raise money from big donors, big corporations. For example, we have another one. We have a centrist Democrat that decided to jump into a race in California. Now, this is Dottie Nygaard, who is a nurse. She's running on Medicare for All, and she's in this race, and it's a pretty contentious primary with a lot of different options. Well, she wants to take on the incumbent Republican. She wants to win the primary, take on the Republican. She thinks that she can win. Now, somebody that she had talked to before, a Blue Dog Democrat called Michael Eggman, who he decided to jump in. Now, what's interesting about that is that before their campaigns begun, before Nygaard's campaign had even begun, she and Eggman had conversations, right? And he repeatedly told her, no, don't worry, I'm not going to run. I would rather focus on my business and on my family. Those are my first priorities. I'm not going to run in. I'm not going to step in. So what happened? Just recently, it was reported that he's stepping in. I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that the establishment doesn't actually want progressives to run in that district or to win in that district. I would bet you money. And look, all the other campaigns, by the way, had been organizing for months and working to try and get those endorsements. So here comes Eggman. He drops right in. And again, I see that this is an aside here, but Eggman makes me think of Professor Eggman. Makes me think of Sonic for some reason. But anyway, I just had to address that. But look, anyway, what are the chances that he will actually get all the endorsements? I think there's 100% chance that now Eggman is going to be the favorite because guess what? He is a Blue Dog centrist Democrat. And besides, he already has the ability to raise money and previously ran before. So here we go. This is another example. Members of the Democratic establishment that are jumping in the way, that are putting roadblocks on progressive candidates. So again, if you thought that they were going to be eager to give up their power, you were wrong. These primaries, these are fights. And yes, the establishment is going to fight dirty. But remember, we have the policies and we have the people on our side. So we can actually win. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.